Everyone can learn to middle split. No matter if you're into gymnastics, calisthenics, yoga, dance, or simply life itself, having a good middle split is going to allow you to level up. And no, the anatomical structure of your hips is most likely not what is holding you back. The reason that you don't have your middle split is because you don't train the right way, or because what you consider as training is not training at all. By simply adjusting your exercise choices, training protocols, and progression selection like described in the following video, you're going to be able to break through plateaus and with visible progress work towards your middle split. Make sure you stick around till the very end of this video for a free sample workout that you can do every single day, including the best progressions for your middle split. The thing with the middle splits is that doing attempts is not training. If your middle split is currently more than 3 yoga blocks away from the floor, there's no reason for you to be training a full middle split because it's not going to be very efficient. Instead, we have to focus on doing progressions. We have to isolate and separately train each part of the middle split chain. So you're going to be able to monitor your progress, build a strong mind-muscle connection, push through plateaus without getting injured, and eventually end up with your full middle split on the floor. But let's take it one step at a time. In order to truly understand what the middle split is, we first have to look at the pancake. Now in the pancake, the seat bones point down towards the floor and the knees up towards the ceiling. Your head is pointing towards the front in the direction of your toes. The main muscles stretched here are going to be your hamstrings in a particular angle as your legs are already quite far open. When I now pull myself forward and I end up in a middle split, my knees end up pointing in the same direction as my head and my seat bones point away from my head. This is how you're going to be able to distinguish between a pancake and a middle split. As you can see in the middle split, the main thing stretched is your adductors. It doesn't matter if you're laying, if you're sitting, or even if you're standing up. At the end of the day, the same rules apply. Your legs are wide open with your knees pointing in the direction of your head and your seat bones the opposite direction. No matter which position you're in, it becomes clear that the hamstrings and the adductors are going to be the main working points in your middle split. The first step of now training towards your middle split is isolating the two. Work on each of them separately. This is going to allow you to make gains early on in your flexibility journey, but most importantly, it's going to allow you to identify your weak spots. If your frog is very far away from the floor, you can know that you're lacking adductor mobility. If you're attempting a middle split but you're not able to straighten your knees, you know that you're lacking hamstring mobility. We want to build on our strength, yet heavily invest into our weaknesses. Once you know which of the two is lacking behind a little bit, you're going to invest 60% of your time there and only 40% of your time into this part that's already more flexible. Now once you're getting more comfortable with the isolation work, we're going to add compound stretches into the routine, basically stretches that are going to combine the two in one. Now the pancake is not a necessary progression for the middle split, but in our case it's going to represent a great stepping stone to make our way towards the middle split. You see in traditional competitive gymnastics, the legs are open in a 90-degree angle. You go down towards the front. For our specific middle split pancake now, we want to open the legs as wide as possible. And the goal here is not anymore to come down with a flat back. That's the goal in gymnastics, but not here, not right now. The idea is to flip your hip forward, to rotate your hips so your pubic bone is going to come down to the floor. Your legs are automatically going to follow your hips as they're connected. So if I'm rotating here, this is also going to internally rotate, so my knees and my big toes are going down towards the floor. And it's here where I see a lot of athletes making rather big mistakes. If you want to work towards the middle split, it is essential that your legs rotate forward. You cannot stay here, continue to stretch your pancake, hoping to make gains towards your middle split. At the very beginning of your journey that will work, but the better you get, the less efficient that will be because your goals just get bigger and bigger. So what you have to do right now, pivot your hips towards the front, putting your pubic bone on the floor, allowing the legs to follow. And from here, all that's left is to pull yourself forward, continue to rotate until your big toes and the inside of your knees touch the floor and you end up in one straight line. Now, of course, you're at the beginning of your journey or maybe you're halfway through your journey. You're not going to be able to do this on the floor. You're going to elevate your hips with yoga blocks, with a bench, with a box, no matter what you're going to find. The base idea of the exercise, all of the technical details remain exactly the same. You begin by opening your legs as wide as possible. First thing we do, flip your hips. pubic bone towards the blocks, towards your bench or whatever you're using. From here, the legs follow, put your hands on the floor, walk them towards the front, and we stay here. Only when you get closer towards the floor, you want to start adding full middle split stretches into your routine. As long as your hips are quite high up, the pressure of this middle split is going to go into your knees and not into your hips. So it is not recommended to already extend your legs fully while you're still far away from the floor. In general, it is essential that when you're training for your middle split, your knees are always fully locked. If you are not able to fully lock out or to straighten your knees in your middle split stretch, you have to stop and you have to take a step back. Focus on stretching your hamstrings more. Stretching your middle split with slightly bent knees is going to be extremely dangerous for the health of your knees. Don't do it. You're not going to make progress here. Take a step back, learn to straighten your knees in the middle split, and then come back. Having all of this knowledge on how to train for your middle split is great. By the end of the day, it's going to be up to you to create a routine and a workout plan that's fun, inspiring, and most importantly, that you can stick with. Because at the end of the day, consistency is going to be key when you're working towards your flexibility. When you are creating your workout plan now, there are 3 main stretches that I want you to focus on. When you first start training for your middle split, you might have very little or even no range at all available. And if something is not there, it's difficult to imagine that it could be there. It's here where dynamic stretches come in extremely handy. You're going to work through the entire range of motion of your joint in each rep, working towards the end range of motion, but not past it. This is going to allow you to warm up before deeper stretches, but it's also going to help you, especially at the beginning of your journey, to build coordination and mind-muscle connection. Every single workout should start with 2 to 4 sets of dynamic stretches for each muscle group that is being stretched in the workout. It's going to help you increase overall muscle elasticity and mobility. Static stretches are going to make up the foundation or the bulk of your middle split training. As the name already suggests, the idea is to hold the position statically for a continuous period of time. These kind of stretches are especially beginner friendly because they're going to allow you to set yourself up in your stretch without much additional movement slowly, so you can really monitor your form and your alignment and target exactly the muscles that you're going for. You're going to start slow, but over time you're going to work up to holding each stretch for at least 40 seconds at a time. Proprioceptive neuromuscular facilitation, or in short, PNF stretches, is where really the magic is going to happen, where the big results are going to come driven in. But at the same time, you got to keep in mind that this particular stretching technique is more advanced and it's going to be the one that might leave you more sore than others. So you want to be careful and treat it with caution. The idea of a PNF stretch is that you're going to go down into a static stretch. Mild discomfort. Now in this static stretch, you're going to engage the muscle that is being stretched. Not hard, you don't want to push yourself back out of the stretch, but you want to engage the muscle enough to have some tension inside of the muscle. You're going to hold this engagement for 4 to 6 seconds before then relaxing and sliding into a deeper stretch. I promise to you, with all of the clients that I've trained over the past years, this was probably the most efficient way of gaining flexibility. When you are thinking about getting more flexible, don't just think about lengthening the muscle. Also think what your brain is doing while you're stretching. When you're getting into a stretch, your brain is sending signals to the joint and muscles around it to protect it. Your brain does not trust you, and let's be honest, why should it? By going down into the stretch and engaging the muscle that you're working on, you're telling the brain that you're still in charge, that you're still able to protect your joint, and the brain is going to send signals to this muscle to trust you and to relax more when you then get into your deeper stretch. Additionally, stretching is a lot about coordination, figuring out which muscles to engage to stabilize the position, and at the same time relaxing the muscle that you're actually stretching is not quite easy, it's not simple. But by engaging that one muscle that you then want to actively relax, you're going to build mind-muscle connection, and relaxing this muscle will get easier. Last but not least, through a PNF stretch, you're going to pre-fatigue the muscle a bit, and then when you are exhaling and you are relaxing into the deeper stretch, the muscle is a little bit more tired and it's going to allow you to stretch a little bit deeper. The frog is going to be the most obvious, but also the most friendly and most useful PNF stretch for your adductors. The idea is that when you're in your frog already in a slight stretch position, you're going to engage your adductors. Basically, you're going to push your knees into the floor so your hips come up lightly, not too much. Stay here for 4 seconds and then relax, sliding into a deeper stretch for 6. When incorporating PNF stretches for the hamstrings, it's essential to first remember what the hamstring actually does. Your hamstring is not responsible for closing the leg down. Instead, the main function of the hamstring is bending the knee. So in our hamstring stretch here, what we want to do now is bend the knee gently, not like crazy. You just want to engage the muscle. This is going to basically push this heel into the floor, but also drag the heel towards you a bit. We stay here for 4 seconds, and you're going to relax and exhale for 6, sliding into a deeper stretch. The full middle split, on the other hand, is not going to be a good place to use the PNF stretch if you're only at the beginning of your journey and rather far away from the floor. If I now engage my adductor muscle to push my heels into the floor, my knees are going to get bent in a curve. That's something we obviously don't want. Most of our knees are rather fragile. You can use PNF stretches in your full middle split if you are quite close to the floor. As in this case, your knees are not going to take any extra pressure as they're already connected with the floor. Whilst I'm personally not the biggest believer in active stretches, there's some research that indicates that they can benefit your flexibility training drastically. When you're just at the beginning of your journey, you're not very flexible yet, and you don't have a very big range of motion yet, active stretches are really just strengthening and conditioning. The idea of an active stretch is that you're going into a stretch. You're going to engage the opposite, the antagonist muscle, to pull into a deeper stretch. The idea therefore is that we're using the small antagonist muscle to fight gravity and the resistance inside of our body to get into a deeper stretch. That's never going to work. So why even bother? Well, it's going to teach you to pull yourself into a deeper stretch. Taking the example of the pancake. If I'm training sitting leg lifts, I'm training my hip flexors. I'm basically teaching my body to decrease the angle or the distance between my quad and the ribs. When I'm now going into the pancake, I'm going to use exactly the same muscle engagement to decrease the angle or the distance to pull myself into a deeper stretch. It's going to be exactly the same thing with your fire hydrants. Practicing these leg lifts on the outside are going to be extremely beneficial for when you come to your frog, as it's the same muscle that's going to actively pull you into a deeper stretch. Please do bear in mind that your antagonist muscles are rather small and it is easy to overload them. Whilst it is recommended to add active stretches into your training when you're very warm and already have some range of motion available, you want to make sure to keep overall volume low to keep your risk of injury low as well. Weighted middle split stretches are a very popular yet dangerous way to overload the muscles. The idea is to basically, with a weight, stand in your middle split stretch until the muscles get so tired that they give way, you can slide down into a deeper stretch. Now the idea sounds genius, but the reality is that these small muscles are there protecting you from injuries. If you're overloading them until they're too tired to resist, you're going to get injured. Whilst you might be able to see great progress at the beginning of your journey, it's not lasting. You're going to get injured, you're going to have to take a long rest, and you're going to have to start over from scratch, which is going to leave you frustrated. Don't get me wrong, weighted stretches can be good, just not at the beginning of your journey to cut corners and to get to your destination faster. Weighted stretches are only going to help you when you're already quite advanced to build end range control in your middle split. Before we get into the sample routine, let's recap. If you want to train for your middle split, start with isolation exercises. Work on your hamstrings and adductors separately. Introduce compound stretches like the swimmer progressions in order to combine the two. Do not work on your full middle split unless you're about 3 yoga blocks away from the floor. Start with dynamic stretches to increase general range of motion and muscle elasticity, and focus on passive stretches early on. After 2 to 4 weeks, start introducing PNF stretches for increased gains. Further down the line, add active stretches into your routine to be able to pull yourself into a deeper stretch. Only add weights when you're already quite advanced and getting close to the floor. Stretch till mild discomfort, but do stay shy of pain. Stay consistent and allow your body to recover in between sessions. If you want to make middle split gains, here's a sample workout just for you. Of course, adjust the exercises to fit your current level of adductor and hamstring mobility. Before you start training, break a light sweat. Do some jogging or rope skipping for 3 to 5 minutes. We're going to get started with a dynamic exercise. We're going to do standing pancake slides. We're going to go for 10 on each side. Follow this with the Cossack swap exercise. Still staying somewhat dynamic, you can do these close to the wall to make sure your form is great. I want you to go on every side 5 times. We're going to stay dynamic and add the dynamic pike stretch, or how I like to call them, the squatting pike warm-up. We're going to do 10 on each side. Make sure you straighten your back and flip your hips in an anterior pelvic tilt. Enough of the dynamic warm-up, we're going to move into more passive stretches. We're going to start with a passive hamstring stretch. The idea is still the same. Straighten your back, flip your hips in anterior pelvic tilt Focus the stretch on your hamstrings and not in the rounding of your back. Moving on, we get to the sided runner stretch slides. Put your leg out, slide it towards the side, push your foot towards the front, then flip your hips and pull back for a very focused and targeted hamstring stretch that's going to be great for your pancake. You're going to do 10 on each side. Getting more serious, we're going to do the PNF frog. I want you to engage for 4 seconds and relax for 6 seconds for a total of 4 rounds. With your adductors fried, you're going to elevate your hips and work on some pancake reps. You're going to do 2 sets of 6. And last but not least, you're going to do a long hold of a less intense middle split. You're going to lay on your back against the wall. This is going to ensure that your form is perfect. You're going to make sure that your knees are fully locked, and you're simply going to relax and exhale into a deeper stretch for an entire minute. And that's it, guys. Thank you so much for stretching with me. To give you one last tip along the way, write a program, track your progress, and stick to the program. Don't start a new middle split program every week or every second week. Flexibility gains should take time. They don't come overnight. Slow gains are lasting gains. Have a good one.